Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to show you how to change an engine on an E90 BMW. Okay, so I might as well talk you guys through what happened while I take apart the front end. So I basically did a third gear pull while the car was still kind of cold. For some background info, this car used to make 540 wheel horsepower as an automatic. I then asked my tuner to turn up the power a little bit because this is no longer my daily. That probably pushed things up to 580. I never really got a dynoed, but it definitely felt faster. I converted this car to manual, so right away I could have been over 600 wheel horsepower as is, and maybe over 600 wheel torque just as things were going, but I didn't really beat on the car a lot. But it was really cold, probably like under 40 degrees when I pushed the car. Oil hadn't fully warmed up, made 28 psi, and I just stayed in it. It was kind of irresponsible of me to do that. And right after that, that's where I encountered this issue. The car started to run rough after enough metallic particles built up. I've already done the rod bearings on this. I upgraded to King bearings. You know, it could have been that job, but I checked the clearances and everything was fine. It could have been that I didn't get all the metal particles out of the engine. Regardless though, it was my mistake to do that, and now I have to replace this engine. We will of course dissect this engine and show you the inside of an N54 and potentially build it. I got a new motor on the way. It's got 63,000 miles on it from California. If this was caused by poor workmanship on my part or whatever the cause is, I'll definitely tell you guys so you can learn from it. But if you had to ask me, I just pushed the tune too far. So my plan is, my clutch in here can't really handle more than 550 wheel horsepower anyway, so I'm just gonna revert back to the tune I had before I asked my tuner to turn things up and data log. And you know, this car could still make high 500s like that. I may have to even turn it down some more and just enjoy the car for what it is because it's already very fast. I'm not trying to make it a quarter-mile missile, otherwise I would have just converted to single and taken the strain off with less torque down low. I already verified that I have metal particles in the oil filter housing. So this video will be about how to remove the engine. Of course, I'm just taking apart the front end, the usual stuff you do to get the bumper off. Then we'll take off the core support, drain the rad fluid, and remove the engine. In the next video, we'll dissect what happened to it. If it was just one cylinder that spun a bearing because I was just pushing things too hard, or maybe the oil didn't come up to temp, we'll find out what the cause was. If I ever sell or give this car away, it will be better for the next owner to have a 63k mile motor anyway. With the transmission and everything I've done to the car, it will be like it's a new car. It really would have hardly any wear parts that weren't already replaced. I had a company come out and evacuate the AC. There's still a little bit of pressure in there and it sprayed a bit. I was surprised to see that, but not very much pressure. Okay, so now I'm going to go after the electrical connections on top. And, you know, this is mostly just been showing you me working, not so much talking. But, you know, if you guys are nervous about spinning a rod bearing, it's not uncommon to see that N54s spin a rod bearing, but not as common as you would see on other models. A lot of people theorize that it's from prior lack of maintenance, etc. But, you know, this car was well maintained, and I only changed the rod bearings for maintenance, really. I didn't have to do it, but I could have been me doing the work that caused this issue. I don't think so. I think that you can just spin if you have too much power and you got too much rod flex, and then it basically damages the bearing, and then it kind of goes from there. Either you bend a rod or throw a rod, or you get flex and screw up the rod bearing, and then that's it, it's over. In my opinion, I pushed the power a little bit too far on this car. But this motor, you know, it barely is knocking at this point, so you know, I did have to do that little cold start to show you what it sounds like and why I'm doing this, but we can salvage it. So I'm undecided if I'm going to build this motor. I know a lot of you guys would want to see it, but to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to throw that much funds toward it. You know, I have a new motor coming, 63K miles. I'll back things off a little bit and just enjoy the car. But if you guys want to see it, we'll talk about maybe if you guys want to pitch in toward a GoFundMe or something, because I wouldn't really be doing it for myself. I'd be doing it for you guys, but we'll see. Or if we can get a vendor to sponsor the parts, etc., I would consider it. For anybody wondering about my little conversion to the aluminum cap and the pressure relief valve, etc., I'm sure someone's going to say, hey, what about that? I'm not worried about that. The filter is perfectly fine looking. I didn't get one code for low pressure even till this point. We're still fine in terms of oil pressure even right now. So we didn't lose oil pressure, we just overstressed the bottom end. It's been told to me by wise old mechanics that you don't really want to touch on a perfectly running motor. You may not want to touch the rod bearings unless you're going to do the mains, because then you don't have even wear between the two sets. I actually opened up the clearances by going to King bearings. Maybe that was a little bit worse than factory bearings, I'm not sure, but probably not. But what if the mains were worn a bit and bias went toward the rod bearings, just because of the way we've messed with a perfectly fine engine, and so to speak. So I'm not sure. Something to put out there. Or it could just be mechanical stress from pushing the power too much. There's a lot of reasons this could have happened. It could have just been that I didn't clean up the engine enough after doing the timing chain. So I'm planning to pull the transmission and the engine together. I got all the wiring and anything that could be in the way removed except for the plug to the water pump. I plan to undo the engine mounts and just lift the motor up with the transmission and take it all out together. I'll have to go underneath the car and disconnect the linkage and drive shaft, etc. So we'll do that next. Now I'm reaching up in here and disconnecting the shifter linkage. So I got the shifter disconnected from above. I'm going after the reverse harness here. Disconnecting the oil level sensor. I know it's going to be more work later on down the line, but I don't feel like messing around with that right now, so I'm going to just pop this line out. I'm hoping I'll be able to leave the downpipes connected to the engine and just remove the exhaust. So I'm pretty sure I got everything from underneath. I'm going to go up above and take out the two 16 bolts that hold the engine to the subframe, and then we're going to try to lift it out. It was easier to just go after the two bolts on the bottom side of the subframe for that side. Time to bring the engine hoist over. So I disconnected the power steering line from the power steering pump. You could probably try to remove the pump and set it aside, but I'm just going to bleed it after. So I removed the power steering line from the power steering pump. Now I'll take off the two lines that bolt to the subframe for the coolant. That's how I'm going to store the motor while we wait for the new one. Alright guys, and that's my engine bay. As you can see, I did it at home and I just used stuff I got at my local Harbor Freight to get it done. In the next video, we'll do some maintenance on the new motor and take a look at it. And then in the following video, we'll take a look at what happened with my original motor. If this is the first video you're catching of mine, please consider subscribing. I do upload regularly. Thanks for watching.